Hello everybody, welcome back to the garden. Today's going to be a really fun episode on propagating our dahlias. This is going to be our second video in this series so far. In the first one, I showed you guys how to plant your tuber and get it growing so we get these little sprouts shooting out on top without having to plant them in the garden. So we planted this into this pot here. And what we're going to do in today's video is actually take these cuttings and propagate them so they start to grow in their own containers here. This process is super easy. You guys are going to love this one. If you don't want to take cuttings later on in the season, this is a great way to do this, and you can get a lot of cuttings from a single tuber system on your dahlias. First thing we have to do is prepare our containers. Dahlias are not very specific when it comes to the soil that you're propagating them in. If you have regular soil or a compost mix, make sure that you do add in some perlite or coarse sand or something to aerate the soil just a little bit so it's easier for these cuttings to root in. The mixture that I'm going to be using today is just a regular old organic potting mix that you can buy at any gardening supply. First thing we have to do is just poke some holes in your container if you're using a container like this. Otherwise, if you've got a pot with a hole in it already, you can plant your new propagated cuttings into something like this as well. We've got our pot ready. Now let's go and take the actual cutting. So this is our dahlia tuber, and what we're looking for when taking our cuttings is just some sprouts coming up. Usually when they're a few inches tall, it's plenty enough growth to take your cutting. As long as you cut deep enough into the tuber, that's going to help out when rooting this cutting. So I've just got a sharp knife. I'm just going to cut down onto one side of this one here. Then cut a little bit onto the other side of it. Trying to pop that off of there. This one was in kind of a trickier spot than usual because of that old stem growing there. But this is what you want. As long as you get that bottom crown of this cutting here, that's really going to help out the most when rooting this. So then just take your cutting, make a little hole in the soil for it, bury that bottom mass. And if you've got a bunch of leaves growing on this, you can trim back some of those leaves to help encourage some more growth. But we only have a couple of sets on here, so I'm just going to put it into the soil like that. Now, not saying this is the situation that you're going to be in for sure. Hopefully yours sprout out at different parts of the tuber so you don't have this issue. But with this one, I think I'm just going to break off this top stem here. And right here you can see that it actually broke that whole tuber off. So what I'm going to do is go a little bit into this woody part, cut that off there. That way this tuber is going to continue to grow. I could actually propagate this out into a whole nother plant. And then this is our cutting that we were looking for. I'm going to plant that tuber right back into the soil. Set that off to the side and let it shoot up some more plants that I can propagate out in the future. Giving you guys a close-up look of what you're looking for. See that darker spot there? Right on the end of here is going to contain some tuber material, and that's where it's going to shoot out the most roots and have the greatest success rate, as if you can get a little bit of that harder tuber material on the end here. So just like that, real quick and easy process. You don't want to grow these in direct sunlight right away. You want to wait until they've established a little bit. Give it like 2 or 3 weeks of growing indoors in right next to a bright sunlit window, or even outside in a partially shaded area. Keep this soil evenly moist, watering every couple of days. Make sure it's not waterlogged, and also make sure it doesn't dry completely out. And then these bad boys are going to be growing for you. Of course, I'm going to have an update on this coming in the future once they root, and then once they continue to grow in the garden, just like everything else here. If you'd enjoyed today's video, please hit that subscribe button, and of course ring that bell so you're notified every time we're coming out with new videos with all of the projects that we have going on here in the garden. Thank you all so much for watching, happy gardening, and we'll see you in the next episode.